If we were to experience a long-term grid down scenario, infections and disease would be some of our biggest threats. And even during a short-term emergency, many common illnesses and injuries, if they happen at the worst possible time, could turn serious if you don't get the proper medications in time. And while there are many medications that we can store to help us be prepared for medical emergencies, others require a prescription and can be harder to get. One type of medication that has been a big challenge for preppers to get a hold of so we can store them has been antibiotics. Like many other types of medications, they do require a prescription, and a lot of primary care physicians are very hesitant about prescribing medications such as these for just-in-case type situations. And there's a few different reasons for that. A lot of physicians are concerned about antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria, which have become a problem in recent years. And then also maybe they would be sympathetic to providing us with those medications, but they might work for a healthcare system that prohibits their doctors from doing that sort of thing. But fortunately, a company has come along very recently called Jase Medical that has helped to solve that problem. Jase Medical was founded by a board-certified physician, Dr. Sean Rowland, and they offer a product called the Jase case, which is essentially a case that contains 5 different types of antibiotics that would be useful during emergency type situations. I would like to thank them for sending us one to take a look at today and for sponsoring this video. And these are real medications prescribed to you by real physicians. And it's 100% legal. They follow all applicable laws, rules, regulations. And it's very similar to maybe some telemedicine services that you've used before. I know that I have used Teladoc in the past, like if I had strep or something like that. I call a doctor, they prescribe me medications. So this is a very similar type of service to maybe some things that you've already used before. And having a supply of emergency antibiotics has a lot of different uses. Of course, us being preppers or survivalists, we know the value of having a supply of good, high quality, real medications that we could use if there's some sort of long-term grid down type situation or even a more short-term emergency. Having these types of medications could be lifesavers. But even if maybe you came across this video and you're not as concerned about emergency preparation, but you're somebody that travels a lot, maybe you're somebody that does mission work overseas, or you spend a lot of time in the backcountry doing camping or hunting or hiking, then something like this could be very valuable. I had a friend who is doing mission work over in Kenya, and they use dirt bikes a lot of the time to get around over there, and he had an accident on that bike, messed his arm all up, and the way that they treated it out there, the guys that he was with, was not the best way to do it, and his arm got infected. And it was literally a God thing that if he had found a doctor one day later, he probably would have lost his arm. But if he would have had a correct treatment to begin with, and then also something like this in his pack, then that situation would not have been nearly as serious as what it was. And then another thing to consider is most antibiotics, especially generics, are produced overseas. And we have been facing some severe supply chain disruptions for the past couple years. The pandemic kind of started that, and as we continue on, these conflicts that we've been having recently, they probably aren't going to help that supply chain issue. So having a supply of emergency antibiotics can be a hedge against disruptions in that supply chain, so that if you need medications and you could not get them otherwise, then you would already have some available to you if you needed to use them. And y'all, as preppers, there's a lot of things that we buy kind of just for the fun of it that we may or may not actually need to have in a survival situation. I know me personally, I'm as guilty of being a geardo as anybody else. I love gear. We talk about gear on the channel because it's fun. People enjoy watching it. I like making the videos. But this is something that could legitimately save your life. Having the right sort of medications could mean the difference between life and death. And there are certain types of situations where having something like this would literally be the only thing that would help you recover from certain types of infections or illnesses. Now, when you order a Jace case, you should get a few different things. And the first one is going to be this bag. It holds the medications that they send you, and it also has room for other medications as well. So if you have maybe other prescriptions, or if you take some over-the-counter meds frequently, like me, I have heartburn and I have allergies, it'd probably be a good idea for me to keep some medications for those, along with just normal run-of-the-mill pain relievers and fever reducers in there, and this has space for it. And it also comes with an emergency antibiotic guide, and this was written by a board-certified physician. It'll help you know which sort of illnesses and infections certain antibiotics treat, because not every antibiotic is effective against every form of bacteria. You kind of got to know which antibiotic that you need to be using depending on what sort of situation that you were in, and this will help you do that. Now, I just want to let you know that according to my contact from Jace, they have been having some supply chain issues with the bags and with the books. So hopefully if you order a Jace case, you will get those things. But if for some reason you don't, that is probably the reason why. After I filmed this segment, I reached out to Jace and I asked them, if you did not get a bag or book, would you get one later? And they said that they will be sending those out separately as soon as they get a shipment, and they do have shipments coming soon. So you should get your bag and book even if you don't get it initially with your shipment of medications. But really, at the end of the day, what is most important is getting these life-saving medications, which I will go over in just a second. But before I do, I just want to throw a disclaimer out there. I am not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV. So this information is mainly educational, kind of edutainment, and just information to let you know whether or not this is a product that you would be interested in. Of course, you still need to be consulting your primary care physician and taking advantage of the fact that if you order one of these, you are able to contact the physicians within Jace, as well as the pharmacist who sends the medication. So just before we go into the medications, please understand all that. So when you order a Jace case, you are going to get 5 different emergency antibiotics, and those are Azithromycin, also known as Z-Pak, Amoxicillin-Clavulanate, Doxycycline, Metronidazole, and Ciprofloxacin. For azithromycin, you're going to get 6 250 milligram pills, and those are commonly used to treat pneumonia, urinary tract infections, and traveler's diarrhea. For doxycycline, you're going to get 120 100 milligram pills, and that's commonly used to treat things like bites, skin infections, tetanus, as well as some bioterror agents, things like anthrax, plague, and tularemia, which is a bacteria that affects skin, eyes, lymph nodes, and your lungs. You're going to get 28 875 milligram amoxicillin-clavulanate pills, and those treat bite wounds, sinusitis, and can also treat pneumonia if they're used in combination with the azithromycin or doxycycline. Then as far as metronidazole, you're going to get 30 500 milligram pills, and that's used commonly with bacterial vaginosis, giardiasis, tetanus, and trichomoniasis. For ciprofloxacin, you're going to get 28 500 milligram pills, and that's commonly used to treat things like traveler's diarrhea, as well as the biological agents that we talked about earlier, anthrax, plague, and tularemia. Another thing that you'll get with your Jace case is patient education sheets for each one of the medications that they will send you. And this is the same type of thing that you would get if you were to pick up a prescription from your local pharmacy. Usually they staple them to the bag that your medicine comes in, and it has information like side effects, how to use the medications, possible drug interactions, and on the bottom it also has a number that you can use to contact the pharmacist who sent you the medications. And even beyond that, you also have the ability to contact physicians at Jace Medical if you have questions regarding these medications. When it comes to the process of how you actually obtain a Jace case, it starts with a consultation with one of Jace's physicians, and that mainly consists of a lot of data collection, finding out about your medical history and things like that. And one thing that's important to know going into it is you do need to have a primary care physician and you need to have had a checkup within the past 2 years. If you don't have those things, then they won't be able to prescribe you those medications, and I think that has a lot to do with they do need to verify things within your medical history, and not having those things makes that difficult or impossible for them to do. But once they have your information and they check your medical history, if everything checks out, then they will prescribe you the medications and they will be shipped directly to you. If you think you might want to order a Jace case, you can find information and links for how to do that in the description as well as the pinned comment below. And the cost is $259.95. And that does sound like a lot. It is a lot, but it's still probably going to be cheaper than if you were to buy all of these medications with cash from your local pharmacy, or if you were to go the alternative route and buy alternative antibiotics, you know, glub glub, chirp chirp, in the same quantities that you would receive here. So that $259.95, it's probably not as bad as what you think it is just hearing that number. It's actually probably a lot cheaper than going those routes because you wouldn't be able to pay for just-in-case type medications using your insurance anyway. There are also some words of caution that I'd like to give when it comes to using a product like this. And the big one is this is not a substitute for going to see your normal primary care physician. If you are able to go see your primary care physician and you're sick, that is what you need to do. And there's a couple different reasons for that. The first one is it'll allow you to save these medications for if and when you actually need to use them. Last thing that you want to do is come down with a little infection, use up, let's say you use up your azithromycin, and then wind up in a situation where you really could have used that medication in an emergency later on. And then also going to see your normal PCP, that's going to help reduce the chance of a misdiagnosis because they've seen this stuff numerous times. They know what's going on. And y'all, I'm as guilty as anybody of being the do-it-yourself type. And I'm going to tell on myself a little bit. A while back, I had some tonsil problems, and I tried to fix it myself using various methods that I probably shouldn't have done. Whereas if I would have just gone to the doctor, I probably would have got out of there for not a whole lot because I hadn't used my yearly checkup yet, and I would have been a lot less miserable for a lot shorter period of time. So definitely go and see your doctor. And then also, it is a very good idea to be educated on these types of medications as well as the different illnesses and infections that they can treat. So I strongly recommend picking up something like the Survival Medicine Handbook. I mean, this is over 600, nearly 700 pages of medical information regarding different types of ailments, how to treat different injuries, and it also has information on medications as well. I included this on my video, Best Books for Preppers and Survival, and you can check that out by clicking here. Y'all have a good one. Thanks again.